Hey everybody, and welcome to another edition of Board Games Hitting My Table. This is where I talk about all of the games that I have been playing over the last couple of weeks. This episode covering the first half of February 2024. Now before I get started on the games, I want to give a shout out to the show sponsor KIENDA.co.uk, who are my go-to online retailer, and if you use the link in the show notes or the QR code, then you can get 5% off your first order. But let's start with definitely one of the highlights of the last couple of weeks for me, which was getting Amerigo back to the table. Now this is probably a top 3 Stefan Feld game for me, maybe even top 2. It's an absolute joy of a game to play, just a really fun experience because of the use of this cube tower action selection system, where each turn you are dropping a bunch of cubes representing a certain action into the tower, and whatever filters through is going to be the actions that you can select. But the most numerous cube that comes through is the strength of the action that you can select. So there's lots of options to do here. You can sail around the map, you can kind of claim these tiles, you can build the tiles onto the map, you have to store up these cannons on your player sheet to fight off these pirates that attack every single round, and you're collecting tokens and getting multipliers, getting technologies. So whatever you do in this game feels good. There's not really any lulls in the gameplay. It always feels like you're on the edge of your seat and doing something worthwhile, and that was definitely one of the taking away points from this game. It's always nice to get games back to the table that we haven't played for some time, because I think it's been nearly 2 years since I played this one. It doesn't feel like that because the rules are so familiar, and it's quite an easy game to grok and to understand without much fiddliness. And yeah, I just had an absolute great time playing this one. I think my strategy was mainly based on making sure that I combated the pirates, obviously doing building, which you kind of have to dabble in throughout the game. And I think one of my endgame scoring was getting me additional points for every one of the kind of little outposts you put out on these islands. The last turn was somewhat of a differentiating factor in this one, because we had quite a nasty punishment when it came to fighting the pirates off. I purchased a technology that made sure that my opponents had to fight even more pirates off, which they were not able to do, and it actually ended up hurting them a little bit and costing them some points, which I think gave me the win. I'm not entirely sure or certain that I did win this game. I can't even remember, but I do remember that it was a great time. So yeah, I really enjoyed getting this one back to the table. Moving on then, we played a 3-player game of Rumble Nation. Now this is one of my favourite area control style games, a dice-driven one. I talk about it quite a lot on the channel, actually, where you are rolling dice, and those dice are going to determine which region you deploy your troops into, but also how many cubes you deploy into those regions. Now, because of the kind of cascading effect of this game, you seem to have a runaway leader, because if you win one region, you tend to win the next region and win the next one. This game that we had most recently was probably the closest I've ever had in terms of the point scoring, because there are only ever a few points between first place and last place, which is quite a rarity in this one. Such a brilliant game, a true underrated gem, and one of my favourites. So that is Rumble Nation. On to something a lot more recently that I've played for the first time. This is Raise. So if you checked out my most recent ranking video, Raise actually came in at number 1, which is probably a surprise, not to myself, but also to you guys, because this is completely an unknown game. It's a kind of a bidding and bluffing, betting style game, as you are basically playing these cards in your hand, but the cards are determined by these dice rolls, or the strength of them. They're multiplied with each other, and you're going to go along this bidding track, hopefully being the last man standing and getting the points available for the round, but also points based on all the other cards that players have played. So it does have this chicken mechanism where the longer you stay in the game, the more points you're potentially going to win, but also the more points you're potentially going to lose. Now, it can be a bit swingy because of the luck. It is quite a luck-driven game. And I think this most recent play, I was like legions behind my opponents. They really did do well in the kind of first 3/4 of the game, and I was kind of holding my cards back, maybe not being as ambitious as I could have, and it ended up costing me quite a lot. But what a treat this one was. It really did take me by surprise about how good it is, and yeah, hopefully this one's going to well, get played a lot more and spread some awareness about how good this game is, which could hopefully get it on your guys' tables as well. On to another heavy Euro then. I finally managed to get a game of Barrage to the table. Now this is I've always considered this game to be one of my favourite games of all time, at least since I've played it. I think it's a genius design. Now my only kind of reservation to getting this one back to the table was that it is quite a heavy game, and my tastes have changed quite a bit since I played this one the last time. But after kind of rereading and refreshing myself on the mechanisms of the game, it was kind of a really pleasant reminder that the game actually isn't that heavy. At least the mechanisms and the rules aren't heavy, but the decisions are super heavy, and those are the kind of games that I like. So I played a 3-player game of this one, and it was a very interesting game actually, where kind of the first 3 turns of the game, one of my opponents was legions ahead of myself and the other player. I thought there was no way I could possibly catch up, but I was enjoying the gameplay anyway. And the last 2 rounds, I made up so much so much space that I actually managed to squeeze the victory. So it goes to show that this game is not doesn't have a runaway leader problem. And once you think it's over, it doesn't mean necessarily is over, because of the autonomy and the strategic placement and the manipulation of the board that you have. If you're not aware of this game, it's basically a resource management style game where the resources are a shared commodity on the board. It's water that goes down this mountain, and you're trying to capture that water in these dams and convert it into energy and score points in different ways. Now, I kind of learned the hard way in this one, and I think in the future, I'll always ensure that I have at least some contracts in my collection, because it seems like when you use the energy or convert the water into energy, you want to be making sure that you're getting those added benefits from the contracts. And if you're familiar with this game, you'll know what I mean, and it feels like a missed opportunity if you don't do that. So yeah, definitely going to be looking at doing that when I play it again in the future. But yeah, really happy that this game went down an absolute treat. Again, it's been a while since I played a game of this magnitude, and a stark reminder as to why it is one of the greatest games of all time. So that is Barrage. We also played a 3-player game of Crypted. So it's quite a spontaneous choice to play this one. Now, I've always enjoyed this little deduction game, super clean mechanically. Just choose somewhere on the map where you want to guess, basically, and your opponent has to say whether it's a potential place where the Crypted could be or not. Everybody's got a unique rule that will very particularly point to one part or one hex on the map. And I really do like the game. Again, I like how smooth it is. I like how how the rules get out of your way, and you can just enjoy the deduction part. However, it does kind of feel like once there are a certain amount of indicators on the map, that the answer will be there. And it's just a matter of how much time you want to spend in working it out and familiarising yourself with those potential rules to work out. So sometimes I think the flow of the game can be broken depending on who you play with. I felt like there was a point in this game where I thought, the answer's definitely on the board, and if I stopped and halted the game for 5 minutes, I could work out the answer. But I thought I don't want to keep the other players waiting, so therefore I'll just pick something quickly and move on, whereas that actually ended up hurting me winning, but doesn't matter. But it's kind of one of those games where once the answer's on the board, it's on the board, and that can kind of again break the flow of the gameplay. But still a really decent game, a unique take on the deduction genre, I feel, because a lot of them are the same, that kind of sleuth mechanism. This one's a little bit different, being on a shared map. Also played a 3-player game of Dice Miner. So this is a dice drafting game where you're trying to collect sets of different types and score points in different ways. The mechanism in this game is actually very novel, and I've not seen it before, where you're filtering these dice onto this kind of 3D mountainscape, and you can draft the dice off of the kind of off the top of these, or the pinnacles of that that dice kind of tower, I suppose. And yeah, that's really cool. Now, the problem is I think every other part of the game is pretty lackluster. It's incredibly lucky. Sometimes there's just no dice you want to take at all. Sometimes your options are next to void. And this is a game I kind of started off lukewarm on. I warmed up to it a bit, and now it's just completely crashed, and I'm pretty cold on this one, to be honest. I just don't think the choices are there. I think it's too lucky, too swingy, and just overall not that interesting. Apart from that one mechanism, which does have a lot of potential, but this isn't a game to explore that game's potential, in my opinion. So that is Dice Miner. Also played a 3-player game, I believe, of Ship Shape. Now, this is a lovely game. It's a puzzly style game, as you are using these cards to select one of these tiles. The higher number you play, it means you'll draft off the top. You know, the lower you'll draft after all the other players, and you'll put them on your own player board. You'll try to have revealed certain symbols. So the golds are going to give you pure points. The cannons are going to give you points based on, I believe it's who has the most of those. Take away who's got the least. And also the contraband are going to score you points based on, I think the highest player, or the player who's got the most of them, doesn't score anything, but everybody else will score points based on the number on them. So it is a balancing act, as well as, you know, constantly getting new tiles and covering up the existing symbols. It's just a fun game. You know, it's very simple. Again, the choices aren't huge in this one, but there's something about it that just feels fun, and I like that about this one. Kind of a steady Eddie in our gaming collection. We play it semi-regularly. No intention of ever getting rid of this one, because it does feel that nice void, and that puzzly aspect feels different to all of the many other puzzle games out there, simply because of that, you know, that tangible tile placement thing where you're covering up symbols and leaving things exposed to try and suit your needs. So that is Ship Shape. I think this one's definitely flown under the radar and could have been a big hit if it got the wind in its sails. So that is Ship Shape. Staying on a more kind of lighter family style game, we played another game of The Wandering Towers. This is another game that did well on my most recent ranking video. A Kramer and Kiesling design, where you are trying to move around this kind of rondel, moving these towers and moving the wizards on those towers and trying to deposit them in the Raven Tower that looks like this. However, people are playing cards from their hand and moving your pieces by, you know, moving the towers along. You're hijacking rides. Sometimes you're covering up other players. The other players have to remember where their pieces are. You're trying to charge up your potions, use abilities. It's just a very dynamic and interesting game that's got a few little quirks that are just charming, to be honest. So it definitely bridges that gap between being almost like a kid's game, a family game, but still having that unique twist to make it appealing to more seasoned gamers, because I haven't really seen anything quite like this one. It does feel like a timeless design. So in this most recent game, we started to introduce a lot more of the player powers. They weren't used to a huge extent, but I did use a couple of them, which managed to, I think I got the win on this one. And it's one of those games where, you know, the stakes are quite low. It doesn't feel like you're going to get very competitive over this one at all, because it is just so breezy. But still, it's definitely a welcome addition to my collection. I could bring this out at any time. It caters to quite a wide player crowd, you know, 2 to 6 players. And again, it's just fun. So that is The Wandering Towers. On to the last few games now. We played a 3-player game of a delicious, simple little flip and write style game where you're populating all these kind of planters, trying to put the same and different fruits and veggies in those planters and scoring points. You know, not the best of the pencil first games, but I think it's still a very good one. I think I enjoy it more than my my gaming group do, but because it's a small box and I enjoy it, and someone else I play it with does enjoy it as well, I'll probably keep hold of this one, because I think it's definitely a game that gets better with repeated plays, actually. I remember the first time I played this game, I wasn't terribly keen on it, but the more I played it, I've enjoyed it more and more. And because I introduced this to 2 new gamers, or 2 new players of the game most recently, they were, I think, lukewarm on it. So again, I think they've probably gone through the same roller coaster I have with it. So I think the more I play it with them, they'll probably like it more and more. So that is delicious. Penultimately, I played some more, I think 2 games of Patterns. I can't even remember how these games went. In fact, I do remember how one of them went, because I did teach this to somebody. and we had a super competitive game of this one. It came down to a fraction within a fraction of a point, or a couple of points. And yeah, this is, I think I can say quite confidently, this is the best game that I've played this year. I know it's only February, but definitely yeah, one of the best games I played in the last year, to be honest. I think this is going to do very well in terms of getting Chairman's Choice Awards and just general recommendations, making lists, etc. It's just a phenomenal two-player abstract game with that mandala scoring system. It's fast, it's thinky, there's strategy, there's tactics. Sometimes you just got to go with your intuition, and it's just, yeah, it ticks every single box I'm looking for in a two-player game. It's truly a phenomenal design. That is Patterns. And the final game we played was in fact, we played 2 games of Fantasy Realms. So I did used to have this game in my collection, but I don't anymore. But my friend does have a copy. Now, I enjoyed these 2 most recent plays. I think it's I think there's some good decisions here in this one. I'm trying to build up this optimal hand of cards where they combo and synergize with each other. The first game was a terrible one. I didn't do very well at all. And the second game, I think I've done the best I've ever done. Because I managed to get a nice little arrangement of cards, score me some big combos, and yeah, it's just a good game. And with the app as well, you manage to score things very quickly, and it doesn't become so tedious or laborious in terms of working out your score, which is most players' issue with this game, because the scoring normally takes longer than the gameplay itself. But I can certainly see why this one is a colossal hit, and it's one of those games that I would happily play anytime, really, because it is good fun. So that is Fantasy Realms. So that's all the games that I have been playing. Hopefully you have enjoyed the video. I played some absolutely amazing games. Talked about Amerigo, Patterns, talking about games like Barrage, and also played some nice new additions to the collection as well, such as the Wandering Towers and Ray. So definitely a good range of games here that I have enjoyed this last couple of weeks, and hopefully I'm going to play some amazing games in the next couple of weeks as well. So if you have enjoyed the video, please be sure to hit like and subscribe to the channel, and check out my other content too. And for everybody else, I'll see you next time on Chairman of the Board. Bye bye.